Hello diver friends, I'm Orlando the Quant Diver. So today I wanted to discuss gas consumption. In this video we're gonna go over our sheawater data and look at our SAC rate in the sheawater app. Then we're gonna take that data and analyze it in Python and use it for some real bailout planning on the CCR. I'm using sheawater computers. You might be using something else, but the principles are gonna be the same. The first question is, why do we even care about gas consumption? So as scuba divers who are breathing unnaturally in a hostile environment that is not conducive to human life, why would we give a damn about how much gas we're consuming from this cylinder we have on our backs? So I can think of two reasons. The first one is, when you get started scuba diving, you are breathing a lot compared to an experienced scuba diver. So it doesn't matter if you're in good condition or bad condition, cardio-wise, new scuba divers breathe much more. And that's because they haven't got their buoyancy right yet. So if you track your SAC rate, you will be, in a way, tracking how you're improving as a scuba diver. The second reason is a little bit further for more advanced technical divers, and that's gas planning. You don't always just take an aluminum 80 on your back. You might need to stage tanks, you might need to carry extra tanks. So you want to know how much air you're consuming so that you can prepare for that. Okay, so let's talk about how we measure gas consumption. We use something called the surface air consumption rate, the SAC rate. The reason that there's surface there is that we have to communicate this value by expressing a given pressure, and by convention we say the surface pressure, okay? And then we adjust for the depth so that we get the actual amount of gas that we're drawing from our tanks with every breath. Okay, so when we calculate SAC rates, what units should we be using? We should be using volume units, so either cubic feet or liter. If you're looking at the sheawater app, it expresses it in PSI or bar, so units of pressure. That's a number that you have to take and adjust based on what tank you were diving. Okay, that number by itself is not really helpful to any kind of gas calculation, so keep that in mind. I use the imperial system for everything. Which is why I use metric system when it comes to SAC rates. Okay, why do I use the metric system here? Because it's just so much easier. Okay, PSI does not help when you're doing math. Okay, so let's have a look. Okay, this is my diluent tank. It holds 3 liters of fluid. I can take 3 bottles of Dasani and fill this up. Okay. If I take the valve out, 3 bottles of Dasani. Okay, that's really clear to me. Okay, so I don't know how many cubic feet this is, but 3 liters, that's simple. Okay, anyways, so now, how much air is in this tank when I actually, top this tank off with compressed air? So, if I put it at 3,500 PSI, I couldn't tell you, okay? But if I put it at 200 bar or however many bar, then I know that the air in here is 200 times 3. So 600 liters if I fill it to 200 bar. Why? Because pounds per square inch or pound force per square inch is not really a very intuitive measure, okay? But bar is just how many atmospheres the gas is pressurized to. So if the capacity of this tank is 200 bar, okay, and it holds 3 liters at the surface, then when I fill it, it has 600 liters. It's very simple, okay? So I use bar and I use liters. And you can use bar with cubic feet. It doesn't matter. But more important there, in my personal preference, is to use bar over PSI when making calculations. And also, let me just give you one last tip, and that's that use PSI if you're in the United States and you're diving, especially if you're a beginner. Because what I'm differentiating here is calculations with actual diving, okay? when you're diving and you have a PSI gauge, other people around you can understand that, okay? So nobody's gonna freak out if they see like 100 or something, or 200 or something. So if you are diving bar in the United States, just make sure you can translate that for others if the need arises. Okay, so here is my sheawater app, and it has my dives that I've transferred into it. Okay, so I'm looking at this dive here, and I just want to confirm that I have that I dove with my transmitters here. So I go to gases and I see that it has data for it. So the start pressure at the beginning was a full tank, 3,400, and then the end pressure was about 2,000 psi. Okay, that dive lasted 37 minutes. So over 37 minutes, my pressure decreased by 1,382 psi. So that means that adjusting for depth, so this is a very simple calculation. It takes the average depth of 41 feet. That's like 2.3 atmospheres or something. So it divides this pressure, divides by the time, and what we're left with is the drop in pressure per minute of 16.72 adjusted for the surface. Okay, so that's the shearwater calculation. I think it's very simple, but it leaves a lot of room for improvement. And it actually does pay off to be a little bit more precise here, because as you'll see, if my SAC rate is 20 liters or 28 liters, it's gonna matter a lot in how much air I bring for bailout planning. Okay, so here we're in Python. I want to show you a few things that you need to clean out of your data before you do any kind of SAC calculations. This is the same dive that we saw in the shearwater app. The first thing is that at the beginning of the dive, you're gonna be descending, and then you're gonna slam the inflator on your BCD to become neutrally buoyant. And that's gonna cost a lot of air, at least from the standpoint of a SAC calculation. So here it's marking 70 liters per minute, which is unheard of, okay? This is gonna destroy your SAC rate. Get rid of that. The other thing that I do is that I look for the average depth, and I just take a little bit of the data within a range of the average depth. And you can see that that's still not enough, because you have this craziness here. So this line has just decided to go vertical, and it's a SAC rate that is marking as negative. So that's crazy, right? What happens here, I'm gonna show you the same dive, just that now we're looking at the pressure drop in our tank. What's happening is that as we are descending and we're breathing, we're drawing down the tank, okay? The tank should always draw down. It should be monotonically decreasing. We shouldn't be getting bumps because we don't breathe into our tanks. However, that's not the case, because whenever we ascend, we actually, the decrease in ambient pressure, actually the transmitter is going to read a little bit of that air expanding in your tank, and that's gonna mark a little bit of an increase in pressure. Okay, it's not ideal that this happens, but, well, actually I can tell you a moment that it is ideal when it happens. If you keep your regulator in your mouth and you've depleted your tank and you're making an emergency ascent, you might get some extra air. And that's when the ambient pressure decreases below the intermediate pressure, and you get a little bit of air release there. But that's neither here nor there, and also don't quote me on it because you might not. Just don't count on that. But in any case, we are going up here, and we get a little bit, just a little bit of a pressure increase, right? That translates into a negative SAC rate that will also destroy your calculations. Well, it actually will make you seem like some kind of scuba god in terms of what it will do to your SAC rate calculations. So you still need to get rid of that. Okay, so that's garbage. Okay, so this is the SAC calculations from my data. The first column is my normal SAC rate, and I get my exerted SAC rate. And so that's not the average, that's the 95th percentile. So that's an idea that comes from finance. I basically am basing this on value at risk, where we look for some of the worst possible things that could happen and just prepare for that. This 16 number here, that just tells me, am I getting good at my buoyancy? This number here, my exerted SAC rate, that's what I use for planning. Okay, so now let's talk about gas planning. So in my case, I want to know how much gas I need to bring to a dive where I might go hypercapnic at the worst possible moment. Being hypercapnic means that you breathed in too much CO2 because your rebreather, one of its main functions is to remove CO2 from the circuit. Your body reacted to these excessive rates of CO2 in your blood by bringing you into this hypercapnic episode. And that means that you're breathing uncontrollably at humongously high rates. You cannot control this. That's important to know. You cannot assume that you're experienced, that you can bring this into control. It's just completely physiological reaction, and the only way that you prepare for this is to bring enough gas so that you can breathe the whole time you're underwater. And so this is my baseline, this 25 liters per minute. And what I do to assume hypercapnia is that I just multiply it by 3. Okay? Some people do more, some people do 2. You shouldn't do less than 2 though. Okay, so then I'm gonna give myself 5 minutes to get it together at the bottom. I won't assume that I'm just gonna start my ascent at the moment I bail out. I probably won't know which way is up if I'm hypercapnic. There could be a million things going wrong, so I'm gonna give myself 5 minutes. And 5 minutes might not actually be a very long time, but it's gonna kill my tank that I'm bringing for my bailout. It could even be more conservative than that. Anyway, so if I just run the numbers here, you can see it's 1500 liters in those 5 minutes of getting it together, which is 2/3 of an aluminum 80. Let me just pause here and talk a little bit about this nice integral, since this is the quant diver. Basically, in this case, we're doing a constant rate of ascent, so there really isn't anything special going on here. What we need to do is we take our RMV, which is those 75 liters per minute that we're assuming we're breathing at, and we need to multiply that by the pressure at the depth that we are breathing. But as we ascend, that pressure is gonna change, and so we need to kind of adjust for that. So it's a nice little calculus problem. However, if we just think about this logically, it's just a matter of multiplying, by the median pressure during our ascent, because we're just moving through it at the same rate. So it's called the mean value theorem in calculus, but you probably just get at it by thinking a little bit about it, not knowing anything of calculus to do this. However, this is ultimately kind of an integral that you need to solve, and you need to solve it differently in different situations when a of t, the ascent function, is not linear. So that's something that I'm gonna come back to at some point, but it wouldn't be linear if, for example, you're traveling horizontally to get out of a cave or of a wreck, or if you have safety stops and deco stops, etc. Anyways, let's move on though. Here is a little formula that we do, basically solving this integral in our simple case, and we get that we consumed a total of 2,140 liters of gas. So I'm gonna skip over this code here, but this code is a little Python story, and the story is of our dive. So we're coming down to the bottom at 100 feet. We're not consuming any of our bailout gas. At 10 minutes, we bail out. And so here you can see, wait, it's not empty. there's like a 150 bar. That's because I'm working off double 100s. Here, this is an aluminum 80. And you can see here, we build out, we start going down, we draw down our tank, we start going up. Then once we get to the surface, we are left with like 27 bar. That's almost nothing. That's like the reserve pressure. So again, I wouldn't take less than an aluminum 80 on a regular dive. And if I'm doing any kind of deco, I would take more. So something to keep in mind if you're a rebreather diver. I see a lot of divers dive in deco with only an aluminum 80. Okay, divers, thanks a lot for watching all the way to the end. If you liked it, like and subscribe. If you didn't like it, unlike and subscribe. Again, thanks a lot, and I hope to see you on the next one. Bye.